On this episode of AV Week, we talk about mentorship in the AV industry. The EU is trying to crack down on the level and amount of power that audiovisual devices take, and taking a look at the power of certification. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
This is AV Week, episode 603, recorded Friday, March 10th, 2023. Certified AV. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, first and foremost, you know her as AV Dawn. We can't tell you where she works because she'd have to kill me. Dawn Meade, how are you, ma'am?
Very good. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Absolutely. And somebody that I just discovered I have never had on, although I've known her for many years, is Amelia Vrabel. Amelia is with AVI-SPL, so welcome, ma'am, for the first time.
Thank you. It's good to be on, and I appreciate you thinking of me.
Absolutely. Amelia has I've known Amelia from way back when she used to wear a blue shirt, a blue polo. So yeah, absolutely. This is we are at the end, I guess, of the week, but it's International Women's Month. So this week we celebrated International Women's Day. For that, Dawn's showing the embrace equality, embrace equity. So thank you both so much for joining us. First story comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. The new EU energy regulation that are set to come into effect on September of 2023. This is going to limit the use of 8K and micro LED displays in electronic devices. The new rules are part of the EU's ongoing efforts to reduce energy consumption in electronic devices and are expected to impact the digital signage industry. As these high-resolution displays consume more energy than their counterparts, the new regulations may lead to a shift toward more energy-efficient technologies in the industry. However, the article does suggest that the industry should start exploring alternative technologies such as OLED, which is a nice, thing, and mini LED. Dawn, I am 100% going to start with you because Dawn and I have a long love affair with OLED. We've been waiting for it since roughly 1993. So first question, seriously, Dawn, on this, how is this going to affect, how are these regulations going to affect campuses, universities, and quite frankly, Dawn works for a corporation, in corporate signage and also in corporate displays. How is this going to impact the corporations and the folks that are using this technology across the EU?
Well, I think, first of all, the biggest thing to think about is the rise of the micro LED and the 8K and things like that, that allows us to go bigger and bigger. And these days, folks are moving away from very small displays. They want big visual. They're used to seeing big visual on live events, on the Super Bowl. I mean, it's become such an ingrained part of the business world that you need that big screen, property in front of you. And to achieve that, you either need some big old projectors and screens, which I can speak from experience. Some people in the corporate world are like, projectors, isn't that like really old technology? Even though they still have very good and very wonderful projectors, that's their perception. Versus, flat panel, ooh, sexy, video wall, ooh, sexy. So I think by restricting it, and to be clear, the article and the law says in the residential space, but in the residential space, not only rolls over into the corporate space, but the corporate space sort of builds on the resi space these days. So by restricting that usage in the resi space, it is going to roll over into the corporate space. And I admit, I'm confused by part of this story. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge OLED fan, and OLEDs, by nature of being organic, are less energy consuming. But micro LED, isn't that just another form of direct view LED with just different pixel size and different pixel arrangement? Direct view LED, you can dial up or dial down how bright you have it. You know, I know from my brief stint with a company called Gable that did direct view LED, you never go in and put your direct view LED wall on full screen unless you're outside in bright daylight, because you'd blow someone's retinas out. So if this thing, you know, you can set a rule that you can install these, but only at a max of 25% or 30% nit brightness or something like that. You know, don't sort of ban them all together because they have the capability of going brighter. You know, I think that's where this law or this regulation sort of fails, is that it doesn't take into account the adjustability. And, you know, I mean, it's right there. If you're starting to restrict it in the resi space, the commercial guys are going to be afraid to put them in because they're not going to be familiar with them. They're not going to be as available on the market. You know, I think it's kind of a mistake. Sustainability is great. Our friends over at Sustainable AV, you know, go team. But at the same time, let's look at the technology that's available and the needs within the university or the corporate setting, and find a way that they can coexist peacefully while still helping the planet.
Yeah, Amelia, this feels very much like, almost like the EU took a page off of the German government, because the German government about 6-9 months ago put a rule like this into place, got significant pushback from honestly the digital signage community and the advertising community, and said, wait, you can't do this. You can't turn off our advertising platforms from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And they did get some adjustment there. But, you know, as Dawn mentioned, the sustainability AV folks, several companies and manufacturers in the space are trying to be sustainable, are trying to do things. What can we do to maybe, I'm not suggesting, you know, adjusting this law, but the world has become smaller. And there are times when one regulation from one country or one segment of the world seems like a good idea in another. So I expect some form of this in other parts of the world, whether that be, you know, MEA, Asia Pac, or, you know, in North or South America. So how do we communicate this to, I guess, the powers that be, that, hey, we are trying to be environmentally friendly. We are trying to be, you know, sustainable and responsible. We have the tools. How do we make sure that we are leveraging and utilizing those tools, and then communicate that to the folks making these policies?
Yeah, I think sustainability is one of those things where there's not one answer, right? You know, like this is one avenue, right, to restrict the power of these displays, but that might not be the only way to solve the problem. There's different things we can do to make sure that, you know, like Dawn mentioned on the brightness. Yeah, that's for sure. You don't want to have them running at full brightness anyway. But you can also make sure they're not being used when people aren't around to see them. You know, there's all kinds of controls and such that you can put in place to make sure that, you know, you can be more sustainable and not be kind of wasting energy in situations where you don't need to. And then, of course, there's all kinds of other things we can look at in terms of how the displays are built and with full carbon footprint and all that other stuff that goes along with, you know, the end goal, which is to, you know, be kinder to the planet. But there's always many different avenues to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, coming to us, our friends over at Level 3 Audiovisual. They recently achieved AV 9000 compliance. This recognizes the company for its commitment to quality management. AV 9000 is a set of standards developed by AQAV to ensure that audiovisual systems meet certain levels of quality and performance. Level 3 is one of very few companies, I believe 4, to achieve AV 9000 compliance, which reflects its dedication, quote unquote, dedication to delivering high quality systems and services to its clients. Really quickly, Level 3 is a member of PSNI, CTI, my day job, also a member of PSNI. I think the folks there are pretty fantastic. Headquartered in Phoenix, but they've got offices, you know, a couple different places, including one out of New York, and they do a lot of different work around the world. Amelia, I'm going to ask you, start with you on this. This is it's not a new certification. AV 9000 has been around for a while, but as the article points out, there's not a whole lot of companies that have gained this, right? So what other maybe standards or certifications or qualifications should integrators start looking at to say, hey, you know, we do believe in quality. We do believe in processes. ISO 9000 is the one that comes to mind, but there are others out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we get more into an IT-centric world, we're already there basically, but there's all kinds of networking certifications that are very important to have, different platform certifications. I work a lot with the software platforms on the UCC side. They all have various different certifications to ensure, both the sales and the technical, the customer support, the full stack of essentials, if you will, to, not just install or deploy, but plan for it, sell it correctly, all that other stuff that goes along with it. And every certification is there to really ensure that there's like a minimum level of knowledge that exists. And I think that's the great part about it. I've been on the other side as a manufacturer, and we had certifications in place to make sure that it kind of defended our own name on a product, right? Because if people were going out and installing it and didn't know what they were doing or didn't know how to deploy it or what have you, at the end of the day, the person who looked, or the organization who looked bad, was us, because our name was on the box. And so I think kind of taking it back a step as you go before you get to, manufacturer certification, industry certifications, these things are good because they ensure that, the AV industry as a whole is doing things in a way that, when you walk out, somebody, doesn't remember the integrator sometimes. They remember like the room. It doesn't do what I wanted it to do, or it does do, it does meet the needs. It is a fantastic room. They don't remember the technology necessarily. They remember the experience, and that's the most important thing really to get to deliver a quality experience. So, if you can raise the bar, great. That helps to make sure that the customers are happy. That's where certifications, I think, have a really good play. And there's all kinds of them out there that are, really beneficial for various different applications and use cases.
I want to hit on something you said there before we get with Dawn's take on this. Manufacturer certifications make sure that the products are installed correctly and they're supported correctly. As somebody who has argued with certain manufacturers over the years about that very statement, I also want to take the other side, and I am going to argue both sides of this for a second, because you know what? It's a switcher, right? It's a video switcher, right? It's on the network. It takes the HDMI in one and out 4 ways. It's not that complicated. That was my attitude probably 15 years ago, as I was a tech manager. Just give me the stupid gear, and I can put it in myself, and I can support it myself. However, as you said, there's an old friend of mine who used to work for another manufacturer. He said, no, what you just said, nobody's going to remember it. They're just going to say that brand X sucks because the entire room doesn't work, right? Talk for a second about, from a manufacturer standpoint, how you get that across to not only your dealers, your integrators, but also to the end clients who maybe say, you know what, I want to use this dealer, but you're telling me that they can't because they don't have the certification.
Yeah, and there's different avenues in that, right? And every manufacturer, I feel like, is moving towards knowing their end customer better. When I started in this industry, it was very much like the manufacturer was much more separated from the end user than they are today, where I feel like, yes, there's still channel involved very heavily, but there's more of a, relationship that kind of spans all that. So that's, one avenue is really having, making sure that they understand, and a lot of times when I was on the manufacturer side and I would work directly with end users, they would ask like, hey, which integrators are ones that are, certified in being able to do this? And, that would ensure that, there would be some level of expertise that would be there. And I think the other avenue, of course, in many of these new construction projects is, getting the consultants to write that into the specifications that various certifications are necessary. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not just about, it's a switcher, great. But, if the wrong switcher is specified for the application, somebody feels like they ended up, they paid too much for something that they didn't really need, or if it's not deployed correctly, or, hey, it was supposed to go on the network and for some reason it didn't, because that particular person didn't have the expertise, then that's a problem. And I think the other hard part with the manufacturer is making sure the right people get those certifications, because honestly, certain people could take the certifications and check a box, But those people were never going to go out in the field. They were never going to design the systems. They were never going to specify the product. Like, the chances of that actually solving the end goal was very unlikely, So that's the other thing that gets hard is about, okay, you get a certification, but it's always about the people. It's the people who pass these tests and have the knowledge. How do you make sure those people are actually part of what you're doing in the right way?
So here's what I heard Amelia say is, I don't have to get my certifications. That's what I heard, because I will never go.
No, I mean, the thing is, it's a different certification, and that's why you start to see, manufacturers having a sales certification and a technical certification and a, customer success certification. I mean, these are all different pieces of it that are all important, especially as you get into software. It's more than just let's install it and walk away. It's an entire process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tim, I heard Amelia say, I agree with everything Dawn's been preaching on this show for a while. So you go, girl.
Well, that's where we're going is you, Dawn. Why do these certifications matter when it comes to, and I want you to take it from two angles. First of all, where you sit now as the specifier, as the user of this gear, why does it matter? But also talk for a second from the integrated side, which is where you used to live, some of the difficulties in getting some of these certifications.
It's like you read my mind, what I wanted to talk about exactly. I'm going to start with the old days. When I was an integrator, as you know, I only ever worked for a small company. I think the biggest integrator I ever worked for, mom and pop, was about 20 people at its biggest ever. So on the one hand, we knew we did quality work. We had a very small core and we made sure they were trained, but it was sometimes like pulling teeth to find the budget and the time to send the engineer, to send the techs off to get the training. And a lot of times the boss, one of the bosses, I worked for several companies that size, would be like, well, why am I paying all this money and sending them and losing this productivity when they're just going to get their certification and then leave here for someone bigger that can maybe afford to pay a little more than I can? It's like, well, first of all, work something in their contract that if I send you for training, you have to be here for X amount, or pay me back. But you're only improving your chances of getting jobs when you go through that process, when you educate your team, when you have skilled workers doing good work. It's, basic math there. Good work means more business. So I know the struggle from the small integrator end. I also, Amelia, you're 100% right. It depends on the person. And from the big integrator standpoint, the multi-sites, multi-buildings, multi-places on the planet type integrators, your company might be certified, but are the people in city A where I have a project going on certified? And will those certified people be working on my project? And you never know that. The large integrators, the top 5, top 10, even the whole top 50 list that SCM puts out every year, they ride and die on their local branches. And I have both seen when I was an integrator and as an end user, companies that got a black eye in an entire region because they happen to have one crap location. And you can't always guarantee that every single location when you're looking somewhere new is a good one. So, when I was an integrator, we took advantage of that. We're like, well, we fix their stuff a lot. Hire us. Now that I'm an end user, I can't afford to take that chance. I know everybody in my region. I know the mom and pops. I know the big guys. I know which big guys have good branches and bad branches around here and so forth. So if I'm doing a project in my region, easy peasy, not a problem. I can call up old buddies, old frenemies from my days as an integrator, and I know they'll do great work. But now I'm in charge of projects all over the U.S. and all over the planet. I don't know who's a good integrator near this particular base in this particular desert in this particular place or part of the country or part of the world. I have no idea. So I don't know if the mom and pop's great. I don't know if the big guy nearby is good or not, if they're certified. So standards are one way that we can at least get a shorthand. It's like women in AV, put a string of letters behind your name as shorthand that you're not just the booth babe and you know what you're talking about. Same thing with company certifications and individual certifications. It's shorthand to those of us that are specifiers and buyers, that you and your company take the work seriously and know what you're doing. And, that's literally the first thing I did when I started where I am now and started writing and designing the specs. Because my role, Amelia, is basically I'm the internal consultant and project manager for all of our AV projects. So first thing I did was I said, okay, all of your bidders have to be, have at minimum CTS on staff, preferred CTSD and CTSI on staff, must be an authorized dealer or reseller for whatever products are being used, preference given to those with the certifications, for that manufacturer. In some cases, if it's like a DSP or a programming, you must have a certified programmer or DSP person on staff for this project. And same thing, I list AQ 9000 as one of the standards that preference is given for. We prefer this, but even if you don't have it, and I know the guys don't like me here and say you can get jobs with us without having it, but even if you don't have it, we require you to be familiar with it and do your commissioning and your building in accordance with it. And I say, and also relevant BICSI, CompTIA, standards, all the various standards that relate to our industry, cabling standards, local regulations and laws, all of these things we spell out right in our statement of work in our bid documents now. So that if there's a problem, if we find out we got the bum location of the great big integrator or a mom and pop that just really shouldn't be playing in that space, we have a venue to say, okay, look, it was right here when you bid, you're agreeing to all this. So fix it or pay for us to pay someone to fix it. So it gives the company some a step towards the right direction of getting good quality work wherever, but B, it also gives us an avenue for recourse if that work turns out not to be so quality. Yeah. So standards, good.
Standards in your contracts are good.
And well-written contracts.
I mentioned at the top of the show that we celebrated this week International Women's Day. Recently, we at AVNation wrote an article about the power of mentorship in AV that highlights the importance of mentorship in the audiovisual industry, emphasizes how mentorship can benefit both the mentor and the mentee, helping to foster personal and professional growth. It was 100% taking off of our first episode of our brand new iteration of Women in AV with Jennifer Goodyear and Erica Carroll. Dawn, I'm going to start with you on this. What areas do we need the most mentorship in the industry?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, young people in our industry need to be mentored. We need mentorship for women coming into any STEM field, not just our industry. We need mentorship for people of color, for neurodiverse. I mean, just basically any group, even, young white males. They need mentors too. In case you're listening or watching and saying, what about us? Yeah, we all need mentors. And my thing is, I've never had a formal mentor, never had a formal written mentorship statement, anything like that. So don't feel like you have to establish something written and formal and structured in order to have mentorships. And don't feel like you have to seek out something like that to learn. Some of my greatest mentors in my industry have just been people that I've met at marketing events, networking events, InfoComm, folks that I've run into as frenemies or competimates, over the years that were inspiring, that showed me how to do what we do. And, I have a long list, male and female, various ages, of mentors and heroes and sheroes of, people that I admire in the industry. For a while there with my career, I would always think WWCD, what would Corey do? And if you've been in AV more than 5 minutes, you know who Corey Schaefer is. There's a few other folks. What would Tim do if we're talking about talking some of the marketing things and media things? I've just got this long list of people that I don't even necessarily use the word mentor, but friend. And these friends and colleagues helped my career blossom, and hopefully I'm doing the same for other folks. I try to at the company I work now, they have a very strict formal mentorship program, but they also encourage, non-formal programs. And I always try to grab the little interns when they come in, all the little 12-year-old looking kids, and say, okay, your rotation, you're going to be working with the AV team, but let me tell you how cool AV is. And I befriend them, and I show all these little programmers and IT guys and gals that come into our company that, hey, there's this whole other industry, and we desperately need people, and you have the skill set, you could do it. And they rotate through their internship and then go to the next placement and the next placement. And some of them come back to AV, and some of them would love it. So hopefully I can be an informal mentor that way. But yeah, my short version is yes, we all need mentors. And if you've been in the industry 50 years and are, the seasoned veteran, I bet you need a mentor too. But it's just in a different way. You're learning from the people who are being inspired by you, some of the newer technologies or some of the new slang or the new ways of doing business. If you're very much a suit, tie, office, kind of person, they can help you with the work-life balance or with the hybrid workplace. I mean, there's a lot of ways to be a mentor. And I think that's the biggest thing. People need to open their minds and realize we learn from those around us in business and not in business.
That's a really, really good point. Absolutely. Amelia, same kind of question is where do we need it and how do we do it?
Yeah, I fully agree with Dawn. We need it everywhere, right? Because I think the key with especially like diversity in mentorship is, I think we still have a long way for a lot of women to go, or for women to go in this industry. I mean, we all know that we're very underrepresented. And so if I'm a young woman coming into the industry, I need to see Dawn in her role. I need to know that that's somebody that looks like me. That could be me. I could be that person in however many years, right? And I think people need to see people that they relate to. And whether that's, women or minorities or what have you, that's really important, because if all I see are a bunch of people that don't look like me, who don't seem like me, they didn't come from the same background as me, it seems a lot harder to get to where I'm at, where I'm trying to go. If I don't perceive those people in some way as having at least some level of starting that is similar to me and where I'm at. But I've also never had a formal mentor in this industry. But I will say I was in another industry before AV, even though I always joke with people I was born AV with my initials. But, I was always going to get here apparently at some point. But, I was in another industry before AV where I was also in a program, like I think Dawn is kind of mentioning, where it was a rotational program. And we went to, it was a much larger, organization. We went to different parts of the organization, and we were really taught, trained to, spend a few months here. We learned from these people how to, find those people, ask them questions. And of course, it was a formal program, so they expected us to do all those things. And so, that does help, I think, a young person in their career feel a little more comfortable, going out and seeing what they can learn and what they can know. If I just came to AV fresh and I didn't have that experience, maybe I would have not realized that so early on. But I kind of done the same thing, what kinds of people out there inspire me and why? And then, think about those people and get to know them. And I try to do the same for other people too, knowing that there's people now, coming into the industry that are 20, 25 years younger than me, and they don't always feel as comfortable talking or having their voice heard, but they just maybe need a little bit of encouragement. And they have a lot to offer because they're from a totally different demographic. We have a lot to learn from them. I mean, I don't know that demographic as well as they do because they're in it. But yet those are the types of people who, we're going to be selling to, we're going to be, developing systems for. We need to know their mindset and how they approach things, and we can learn a lot from all different generations. And I think the key is really, where can we look to other people, and then where can we sort of lift up other people, and it kind of be a continual process of doing that. So
yeah, Amelia, to that point, you always, at this time of year especially, but you always read these stories about, mansplaining and how women are, running into problems at work. And your example there just reminded me of something I read that in the advertising space, it was a room full of older white men advertisers, the Don Drapers. And there was one woman working in the room who was a millennial woman. And the whole topic was how to market to millennial women for this one particular product. And she kept saying, hey, I'm a millennial woman. This is what we want. And she kept being dismissed and dismissed. And they went with their idea and it was an utter failure. And she's like, what do we have to do? You know, I don't want to come off as male bashing because I am totally not. I've said this repeatedly on AVWeek and AVNation over the years. Of the STEM industries, the audiovisual industry is absolutely the most welcoming of women. And I mean, I can't speak to it, but I've heard in some cases minorities or neurodiverse people than the other STEM fields. You know, we're really great about helping women out. A lot of the mentors on my list, I mentioned Corey, but a lot of them are men because, you know, the men welcome us in. The men, you know, for a while there, they were the only ones around. They had to be our mentors. But now that there are women, now that there are other groups coming into the industry, yes, representation is huge, but don't rule out having a mentor or a mentee that doesn't look or sound or have the same gender as you, because that can be just as eye-opening and mind-blowing, and sometimes more, witness the at marketing people, you know, than just having another female mentor, another guy mentor, another, you know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant mentor, whatever it happens to be, you know, check your boxes. But yeah, definitely we can learn in both directions, and we can learn from those the same as us as well as different. But we do need to make sure we have representation.
And I think mentorship programs are like formal mentorship programs are great, but they also sort of can be somewhat forced, right? Where, you know, maybe that's not the person I'm going to necessarily feel most connected with to learn from. I mean, it at least shows you something, but hopefully it helps those people get more comfortable and like thinking, where else can I look for mentorship? Because you're never really, you know, you're never going to have like a one-on-one. You're going to be my mentor for the rest of my life. You know, we're not getting married here. Like this is something where as you maybe come into a company, somebody can be there to kind of answer the hard questions. Like you don't want to go to your manager on that, but they can kind of help guide you through. But then hopefully what it does is it lets those people feel more comfortable, you know, looking for other avenues or looking outside, you know, just to kind of feel more comfortable to go where they need to go or have their voices heard. And I agree, this industry is very welcoming, but you also have to put yourself out there a little bit because, you know, if people don't know you're there, they're not going to be able to welcome you. So, you know, it's a little bit of both there.
And one other thing you just said that spurred something in my brain, you know, even if you're matched in a formal mentorship program with someone that you just don't want to be mentee or mentor with for the future, don't discount that entire experience, because by persevering through that, you learn valuable coping skills and valuable communication skills in, you know, button heads with somebody. But more importantly, you're meeting the people in their circle. And sometimes it's the people you meet through someone else that become the most valuable person. I mean, it didn't last more than 20 years, but that's how I met my ex-husband, you know, through somebody else. And I was dating somebody else. But you never know, like connections, it's true of dating and it's true of mentorships. It's true of career work, you know. Even if you're miserable with someone, still remain open, still remain professional, and look around. And you might find that amazing, perfect person in that person's orbit.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you both so much. Dawn Meade, how do people connect with you?
You can't reach me at work, but you can always find me on all the socials, either Dawn Meade, Meade, just like the fort and the general, or at AVDawn on the Twitters and the Instas and all those things the kids have. And you can always find me here just as often as Tim will let me on AVNation.tv on AVWeek.
Absolutely. Amelia, thank you so much, ma'am. How do people connect with you or AVI-SPL?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me at amelia.vrabel at AVI-SPL.com or on LinkedIn. I'm fairly sure I'm the only Amelia Vrabel, so that should be pretty easy. And I'm also on Twitter, Amelia262, if you want to find me there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I love connecting with people. I think we've got a lot of great people in this industry. And so it's just been the reason I've stayed in it all these years, because it's just really a great place to be. So.
And Amelia is my unofficial running coach. So I just want to
well, I sure am not.
Well, Anyhow, for Tim Albright, do not follow me on the Twitters. Go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. I mentioned the brand new redesigned Women of AV podcast. You can check that out. I believe they have a new one coming out soon. And also look for State of Control, EdTech, and XR Star, and more. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.